What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome back to the channel as we are continuing with our 32-team 7-round mock draft series for the 2020 NFL Draft. Here today with the team with 2 first-round picks, pick 22, pick 25. Reason why they have 2 first-round picks is because they traded a perennial star wide receiver, Minnesota Miracle, Stefon Diggs, to the Buffalo Bills. So we're here looking at the Minnesota Vikings, and through the power of Madden 20, we're going to look through their free agency moves and figure out where they need to go in the 2020 draft, lay the land so that we can dominate a mock draft as much as you can. So look at their offense here. They got Kirk Cousins, read up on him. They got a pretty good run game. Dalvin Cook saying he wants to get paid, and he thinks he's the best running back in the league. Don't think that's the case, but he still is a damn good running back, probably top 5, trying to look at it non-biasedly. And Madison really did establish himself. That's a good 1-2 punch. You got Thielen. BC Johnson was one of the better value picks last season, but still, there's a massive hole with no Stefon Diggs. Tajay Sharp coming over from the Tennessee Titans is not going to smooth over that risk. Wide receiver has to be a priority for the Minnesota Vikings in the draft. You need talented wide receivers to get the most out of Kirk Cousins. He's not a guy that's going to really elevate those around him. Going to the offensive line, I thought Garrett Bradbury was a really, really nice pick. Brian O'Neill had a sensational season last year. I don't know what they're going to do with guard. I think that's a position they could improve. Same with at left tackle. Riley Reef might be better suited as actually a guard. So it's an offensive line that definitely, if a BPA, if there's a good lineman available, they should not be hesitant. But I think adding depth is going to be top priority there for the Vikings. And of course, at tight end, you got Irv Smith, who might have actually surpassed Kyle Rudolph as tight end 1. But either way, great 1-2 punch at the tight end spot. Flipping to the defense. It's definitely a different looking defense. Look at the defensive line. No more Linval Joseph, but they did bring in Michael Pierce, which was a great deal. $18 million guaranteed for one of the best run-stuffing D tackles in the league. It's an upgrade, I think, at this point in his career over Linval Joseph. Danielle Hunter is one of the most underrated edge rushers. I think Danielle Hunter and Chandler Jones are the 2 most underappreciated elite edge rushers in the National Football League. But outside of those 2, there's a lot of guys. Another spot they definitely could look for depth. Linebacking core is pretty solid. Eric Kendricks has had a breakout year as one of the best linebackers in football. Anthony Barr is really versatile. Maybe look for an upgrade over Ben Gideon, but generally speaking, the linebacking core is nice. The safety Tatum is good. Anthony Harris was a pro football focused darling last year, and everyone knows Harrison Smith is one of the best safeties in the game. I think they only have 2 safeties on the roster, though. So again, another position they could look at adding depth and you know, get a little bit long in the tooth. Harrison Smith, 30-31 next season. Could be about time to get his successor. But the secondary has just, you know, I couldn't tell you if Mike Hughes has been good or bad or not. I know he was a first-round pick. That's about it, and they need him to play well because no more Xavier Rhodes. Let's be honest, he was completely washed last season. But no Trey Waynes, who was solid, went off and got paid by the Cincinnati Bengals. No more Mackenzie Alexander, who was solid slot corner, went off and got paid by the Cincinnati Bengals. So you have Mike Hughes, you have Holton Hill, you know... Mark Fields from Clemson could potentially be a slot, but this is a team that definitely needs a corner or 2. They need defensive backs, I think. Add a safety, add a versatile playmaker, get some corners, improve the interior of the defensive line, get a wide receiver to replace Stefon Diggs, maybe add some depth to this offensive line. You know, they got a bunch of draft picks. I think when I did the mock, and obviously there's no trades, but they got a lot of day 3 picks. Try to move up a little bit maybe in day 2 and get some guys that can contribute right away. But that being said, without further ado, it's a long one. Let's get into the 7-round mock draft of the Minnesota Vikings. So we're here now at pick 22. They're also back on the clock at pick 25, but it is time to 7-round mock for the Minnesota Vikings. So first up at pick 22, very happy, or probably, I don't know, they're probably pretty happy with the pick that we had the Eagles going with Denzel Mims. I had the Minnesota Vikings at 22, selecting Justin Jefferson. Wide receiver from LSU, 6'1", 200 pounds. Huge breakout year in 2019. 111 catches, 1,500 yards, 18 touchdowns for the national champion LSU Tigers. Perfect replacement for Stefon Diggs. He's going to be best utilized as a slot wide receiver, but he has the speed. Kind of surprised some people running that 4.43 at the combine to be able to flex outside and win downfield. Maybe not consistently. He's probably going to be best suited in the slot. But with an athlete like that, you know, you should feel somewhat comfortable that he can make plays on the outside as well. So very versatile. Should contribute immediately as a rookie and become a very reliable option for Kirk Cousins. Now, it might seem a little annoying, like, oh, we got rid of Stefon Diggs and we're just burning one of our first-round picks on a wide receiver. Why didn't you keep Stefon Diggs? Obviously didn't want to be there. Probably wasn't happy with Kirk Cousins getting an extension. And seems like there were some issues with him and the head coach. So why not, you know, without missing a beat, keeping two high caliber wide receiver options on your team. You don't have Diggs anymore, but now you still got Adam Thielen and Justice Jefferson. That makes the sense the most for me. Can't speak at all. But moving on to pick 25 in the first round, I'm selecting Yetur Gross-Matos, defensive end from Penn State, 6'5", 265, long finesse edge rusher with a very, very high ceiling. Minnesota Vikings need to find Danielle Hunter's partner in crime. They need to find the replacement for Everson Griffen, and I think you can get that here at pick 25 in Gross-Matos. In 2 years starting at Penn State, 94 tackles, 35 tackles for loss, 17.5 sacks. Upside for days. He's going to be if you look at his ceiling, there is no way that if he maximizes his potential, and they've had a great job developing defensive linemen there, or edge rushers at least, for the Minnesota Vikings, Gross-Matos is going to be incredibly well-rounded. You're not going to get a guy like a Yannick Ngakoue, for example, that's a pass-rushing specialist, but doesn't offer a whole lot as a run defender. Gross-Matos is going to be a complete edge rusher, guy that can set the edge, guy that can affect the run, guy that can affect the pass, a perfect partner for Danielle Hunter if he hits his peak, if he hits his max potential, which I would bet, given the Minnesota Vikings track record, he's going to develop into a nice player. Going to the second round at pick 58, I'm selecting Jeremy Chinn. He's a safety. I'm just going to say defensive player from Southern Illinois. 6'3", 220 pounds. An A-tier athlete with that size, running a 4.45, 41-inch vertical, 20 bench press. Dominated lower-level competition. So anytime you look at these guys from small schools, they have to dominate. If they're just a good athlete but kind of was pedestrian at a level, let's be honest, like a B-tier level, those are the guys you get on day 3. If you're going to get a low school guy that get into day 2, get into day 1, guys that can sneak in the first round, they have to dominate their level of competition, and that's exactly what Jeremy Chinn did. I think he's projected as a do-it-all defender. Safety, nickel corner, he's played some corner, a linebacker, hybrid linebacker, money backer. He can do everything. He's a small school Isaiah Simmons. I think some team is going to pick him. You look at the Minnesota Vikings, you got Anthony Harris is what? He's on a tag. I don't think he got a brand new contract yet. He's 28. You look at Harrison Smith, he's 31. So not only are you getting, especially more so looking at Harrison Smith, a guy that could be groomed to eventually be a successor. You get a guy that can be the third safety. You get a guy that can come in and play a little bit linebacker. Honestly, I had problems with rock and roll with him over Ben Gideon. Ben Gideon 6'2", 235, 240. So he's, pretty much like the same size as Jeremy Chinn. I think Jeremy Chinn is, how they use Anthony Barr. They use Anthony Barr pretty much. He does, like, how many hats does that guy wear? That guy got a hat rack worth of responsibility on a Vikings defense. I think you can get something like that in Jeremy Chinn. You can flex him out to a bunch of different abilities, just a Swiss Army knife for a Mike Zimmer defense. Going to the third round at pick 89, I'm selecting Troy Pride Jr., corner from Notre Dame, 5'11", 195 pounds. Great athlete. We knew he was fast. Tested at the combine 4.40, which pretty much makes sense. He's a man cover corner that's going to add depth to a quarterback room who is down 3 corners from last year. No more Xavier Rhodes, no more Trey Waynes, no more Mackenzie Alexander. He brings outside ability, which once you're starting to get 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, guys that are outside corners, they're not going to be incredibly well-rounded, because if they were, they'd be going in the 1st round. But you got to give and take, and what you're getting is a athletic man-cover corner that does make mistakes. But Mike Zimmer, they like corners. They love drafting corners there in Minnesota. You look at their cornerback room right now. Hopefully Mike Hughes, the 1st-round pick in 2018, can put it together. Holton Hill, solid corner. Mark Fields could be able to flex in, take over that Mackenzie Alexander role. But I think a guy like Troy Pride adds some competition, adds some speed on the outside, and could surprise where he ends up in the depth chart after training camp. Go to the 4th round. They got 2 4th-round picks. First up at 105, I'm selecting Hakeem Adeniji, offensive lineman from Kansas, 6'4", 305, 2019 first-team Big 12. Could play right tackle, could play guard. Very technical player who's been a top tackle in the Big 12 for the last 2 years. I think more so, I would slide him inside the guard and adds competition to his starting guard spot. Right now, it's projecting Pat Elflein or Drew Samia. Those are going to be your starting guards. Probably wasn't good enough. I think Minnesota cannot rest on their laurels when it comes to the offensive line. This was an offensive line that just wasn't acceptable. I mean, when you look at the O-line, Garrett Bradbury and Brian O'Neill. Everyone else, it's open game, open season for them to try to figure it out. I think at Adeniji, you can get a guy that could play tackle, could play guard, but he is a guy that has a very, very high floor. There's no way he's not going to be a solid contributor for whatever team drafts him. I don't know how high his ceiling's going to be, because he doesn't really have a natural position, not prototypical tackle size, so he might have to play guard, could play swing tackle, but I think he's a really good football player to have in the building and would be an upgrade wherever he finds a place to start on that Minnesota Vikings offensive line. Go to their 2nd, 4th-round pick at 132. I'm selecting McTelvin Agam, defensive tackle from Kansas, 6'2", 310. Had a pretty good combine for a big boy, 4.89 in the 40, 27 reps on the bench press, and he had pretty consistent production in 4 years at Arkansas. 145 tackles, 31.5 TFLs, 16 sacks, 6 forced fumbles. Brings pretty good interior pressure and can disrupt the pocket efficiently. I'm looking at the Vikings roster. He could find a way on that depth chart. D-tackle 4, D-tackle 5 for an interior when they added Michael Pierce, the nose tackle from Baltimore. But they're still trying to find that other guy that can pair with Michael Pierce. I don't know if it's going to be Jaleel Johnson. It's going to be Hercules Mataafa. I have no idea. So continue to add some solid depth guys that have some pretty decent ceilings, and Agam in the 4th round should definitely make the 53 and could offer a different skill set they currently don't have on that defensive line interiorly. That word, interiorly, if not, making it up. Going to the 5th round to pick 155. I'm selecting Quez Watkins, wide receiver from Southern Miss. 6 feet tall, 185 pounds, sleeper wide receiver. I think he could be this year's BC Johnson for the Minnesota Vikings. He has great speed, showed a 4.35 at the combine 2-time. Back-to-back years, first-team Central USA. I think he has the potential to be an immediate contributor on this team. I didn't think he was going to declare this year. He's one of the last guys to actually declare for the draft. I had him as a 4th-round pick, I think, in my Excel sheets. That's what I had in my my Madden draft class and stuff like that. He's obviously one of the better deep threats in college football. So when you look at that wide receiver core for the Minnesota Vikings, who brings the speed right now? Thielen doesn't bring speed. BC Johnson doesn't really bring speed. You got Tajay Sharp coming over from the Titans. There's not a lot of speed there. So you're going to get that in Quez Watkins. He's going to be able to offer a skill set that you currently don't have on the roster. And if you know anything about me, when I'm trying to build teams here in the mock drafts, I like guys that can complement each other. So I think immediately with Quez Watkins in the 5th round, you're going to get a guy that's going to make the roster because he's going to have a specific role in this offense. And that is going to be to stretch the field. That is going to be to get down deep. And I think that is exactly what he can offer. And for what they really need in Minnesota, that's going to be tremendous value in the 5th round. Going to the 6th round, they got 2 6th-round picks. First up at 201, I was selecting Shaquille Quarterman, linebacker from Miami, 6 feet tall, 235 pounds, old school thumper-style linebacker, great production at Miami, 350 tackles, 46 TFLs, 14 pass breakups for a guy that obviously is not a cover guy. He still finds a way to make plays when he's dropping back into his zone, but I think more so he's going to be an early down run stuffer. You're looking at the roster. I think he's a great compliment to come in there with Cam Smith, the 5th-round pick in 2019, just to solidify the front 7. And you're not going to be. He's a tone setter, man. He is a big-time hitter. I think he's a guy that's going to be great rotational, bring some special teams ability, and be good on run downs. Going to the 2nd 6th-round pick at 205, I'm selecting Steven Montez, quarterback from Colorado, 6'4", 235 pounds, I think. Prototypical size, 62% career passer at Colorado. That's kind of the mark when people are talking about quarterbacks. You want at least 60% or plus. Let's say when people are kind of dogging Josh Allen and it's like 56 or 57%. It's not ideal. So, he does have that going for him. He's a willing runner. He actually kind of showed up at the combine a little bit more athletic. When I was watching his tape, he was a guy that would try to scramble. He never looked like a true dual threat, but he had that little bit of dual threat. Sometimes he would just try to take off. It looked like a design run. I was like, man, this guy's not athletic. What the hell's he doing? It wasn't too bad at the combine, like a 4.68 or something like that. So he is a solid athlete. And I do think now we're getting to a point in the NFL that if you need a guy to come off the bench, you kind of want them to offer something in terms of mobility because your game plan's going to go to hell anyways. You either have a good backup that can execute your game plan. I'm just thinking, think of Philadelphia when Nick Foles came in, right? Or you get a backup that if you're in a pinch, they're going to be able to just find a way to make plays because they're a good athlete. I think you're kind of getting a little bit of that with Montez, and I like him more as a backup. He has more upside than a Sean Mannion or a Jake Browning. Going to the 7th round, we're finishing up the draft. They have 3 7th-round picks. Lots of picks here for the Minnesota Vikings. At 219, I'm selecting Cameron Clark, lineman, offensive lineman, because he plays, I don't know where he's going to play yet, from Charlotte. He's tackle from Charlotte, we'll say. 6'4", 310 pounds. First team Central USA, double dipping on the first team CUSA with Cameron Clark and Quez Watkins. He's a tackle who could develop as a right tackle, a swing tackle, but has the frame to move inside. Scouts rate his technical ability. I think he's going to add depth to the Minnesota Vikings interior offensive line that really has 2 guards right now. So why not build that up with some guys that have some upside? 2nd, 7th-round pick at 249. I was selecting Trayvon Hill, defensive end from Miami, 6'2", 250. Red flags because he was a transfer from Virginia Tech after he got kicked off the program. That's probably why he slips to the 7th round. I think if none of that happened, he was really highly regarded. I remember when I was because I make my draft classes for Madden 4 years in advance. I remember Trayvon Hill, at one point, I had him as a 1st-round pick because that's just kind of where the bubble, the scouting bubble around him was when he was at Virginia Tech. So, obviously with all the red flags, I don't know why he got kicked off. I couldn't find anywhere why he got kicked off Virginia Tech. But, it's probably not good. So that's why we're going to have him, character concerns, sliding to the 7th round. But Scouts do think his ceiling is very high, and it's a low-risk, high-reward pick, especially getting this in the 7th round, to get a guy that potentially can stick on the 53 as a rotational edge rusher for a team that's their depth at edge rusher right now. You assuming you got Hunter, if you get Gross-Matos, what do you get outside of that? Anthony Zettel, maybe? It's not particularly good, so I wouldn't be so shocked if Trayvon Hill hits that ceiling that a lot of scouts appear to believe that he has to take on that and find a way to stick on that 53. And then finishing up in the 7th round at 253, I was selecting Solomon Kinley, guard from Georgia, 6'3", 330, powerful guard with great run-blocking build and mindset. Obviously, if you're offensive lineman at Georgia, gonna need to be a strong run blocker. They love to run the ball down there. I think he could crack the 53 again, much like Cameron Clark. There's just no real interior offensive line depth for the Minnesota Vikings. So getting 2 guards here in the 7th round that could potentially stick on the 53. Pretty much when you're in the 7th round, those are guys that you expect, they could end up on the practice squad. If they make the 53, awesome. And getting 2 guards here that could stick on, that would be insane value for Minnesota. In the last couple of years, we've been grading, at the end after the draft, we grade all the team's picks. I have really liked the Minnesota Vikings draft the last 2 years. I think if they can go ahead and pull off something like this, get a lot of depth, the Vikings tend to make the most of their picks. Their draft picks make the 53. I think that this kind of draft go a long way to just adding to the last 3 years of dominance that the Vikings have had, I think, in terms of drafting, especially into day 2 and day 3. So there you go, guys. That is a very long mock draft, but we got through it for the Minnesota Vikings. Let me know how you feel about it in the comment section below. As always, if your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.